G'day, I'm Jeffrey Brown and I'm here today to give a practical working review of the new Olympus EM1 OMD. I've been shooting the EM5 since it came out. I managed to pick one of these up and been shooting with it for about a week and a half and going to share some of the things that I've figured out about it. Rightio. So I'll start off going through some of the ergonomics of the new camera versus the old camera. The thing that really struck me when I first saw these, and it's a minor thing, but it's something that I've spent a bit of money on. I've gone for about 3 eye cups on the EM5 with them just falling off. This one has got a little clip underneath the eye cup and it's really sturdily on there, which is nice. The other thing that's good and was bad on the EM5, I'd miss a lot of shots with the tilt out LCD. When I'd go to touch and take a photo, the eye sensor would cut out when it saw my finger and it would go onto the EVF, so I manually disabled the auto switching on the EVF, the EM5. But this one, I've actually turned it back on because I noticed I played with it off and played with it on and noticed it's actually really quite good with the detecting when your face is to the camera, and it's quick to switch. The EVF itself is so much better on the EM1 compared to the EM5. When you've used this one for a week and you switch back to this one, it's tiny and it's low res. It's much nicer to use this one. In fact, if you look at the specs, which I'm not going to go into, it's one of the biggest sensors in cameras, full stop, whether it's film full frame or mirrorless or whatever. So quite happy with that. As far as the body styling goes, I actually still prefer the look of the silver EM5, but then I prefer the look of a GX7 or the Pen even more. These are practical cameras. The L-shaped grip might not be to everyone's cup of tea, but it's really comfy. All the controls are exactly where you want them, and there's so many controls. It's comfy to hold, easy to shoot with, easy to change your settings on the fly. That being said, there is one thing. Everyone criticised the EM5 when it came out for the power button locator, but I can one-handedly switch it on, switch it off, easy. I've left the EM1 on a few times because the power button's over here and you've got to have 2 hands, and it's not that big of a deal, but it's something after 12 or so months I really got used to on this camera. So that's a very minor gripe, but it's no big deal. That's the bulk of ergonomics for now. Let's go out, put it to use, and see what I can do. One great addition to the camera as far as controls go is this 1-2 switch on the back here. It gives quick access change to the things like the ISO, which is something that I change quite often, although these cameras work great in auto ISO. Which brings me to my next gripe. The default settings, and also in my opinion most useful settings because it gives you ISO, sets one dial to ISO and the other dial to white balance. Now, since I've been shooting the D700, the EM5, the EM1, it's only if I'm trying to do an artistic effect that I really need to change from auto white balance. Let's face it, the camera is more intelligent than I am when choosing what the light is. So I would have much preferred having something like quick switching with the art filters and the vivid and natural and portrait modes, which are actually quite good. And what they have done with this is when changing them, instead of the EM5, when you had some of the heavy art filters on, like the dramatic tone for instance, which I'll just take a photo of with now. The EVF and LCD were really laggy when in the art modes. There's a setting in the camera that lessens the art filter effect to give a higher frames per second on the EVF and LCD, and it makes it much easier to use the camera just because the camera's not chunking along and you can actually see what you're trying to do. So it seems a bit of a waste that they couldn't actually assign it to be quick switching. It would be much more useful. But the quick switch, it's still good. As I said, quick access to ISO, the HDR settings and the continuous frames, autofocus metering, just makes all that stuff a lot quicker. The other great thing about this camera is the improved IBIS system. My understanding is it's basically the same IBIS as the EM5, but it's got the same as the EP5 in it detects if you're panning up or down, left and right. So especially for video, if you want to then pan, or panning with, like, say, motor racing, it doesn't fight you in that way. But let's just see what we can do here. We will quickly set the ISO to 200 for the sake of it, 2.8. This is going to be a 1/4 of a second shutter, and I'll look to see later if that's steady or not, and we'll put it on the video. I've heard reports saying that you can get down to a second or two, but we'll see what that comes out like. One great artistic feature of this camera is the color creator setting, which is accessible via the multifunction button. Same spot where you still get your highlights and shadows curves that you got on the EM5. What you can do is isolate and accentuate a color, and then so you can either choose blue to emphasize the blue. There I just chose red. That's a bit of rusty metal, but it's being painted and so only some rust is coming out. Chose red to bring out the red, and then you can also adjust the vividness or contrast, I think it is. So you can either wash out all the color or make it more bright and colorful. It's a great creative control for JPEGs on the fly and a bit more artistic flair, but that is something to remember. Those color creator settings only apply to the JPEG. They don't follow the RAW. Any of the settings on here with the art filters and different adjustments, they actually only apply to the RAW if you develop them with Olympus Viewer software, which is up to Olympus Viewer free. If you load the RAW files straight into Adobe Lightroom, for example, all your settings that you set on the camera are just gone, and it's a plain RAW file. So the Olympus Viewer software, it's a bit slow, it's a bit clunky, but if you're familiar with your Olympus camera and you want to shoot RAW, but you want all those creative choices that you made at the time of shooting, the Olympus Viewer software is great for that stuff. Personally, what I do is I will develop my RAW in Olympus Viewer. If I want to make further adjustments in Lightroom or Photoshop, export as a TIFF, bring it in there, heaps of information, you can do whatever you like. But the only thing, as I said, color creator, the settings don't follow the RAW. So you've got to shoot JPEG or JPEG plus RAW, which is what I'm shooting today. Then you still get your artistic interpretation at the time, and you've got the RAW file that you can do whatever you want with later. One great thing about the camera, and about most Micro Four Thirds cameras for that matter, and most lenses, not all of their lenses, is the focus speed. I'm lucky enough I'm one of the very few people in Australia to get an EM1 at this point, but I've actually even got the 12 to 40mm lens. And now's a good enough time as any to mention, I've actually purchased all this gear myself. This isn't a review sample. You can probably notice from the quality of how well I do this. This isn't my day job. But anyway, focuses really quickly, can focus quite closely, as you'll see from the shot I've just taken, and really happy with how that works. The one slight problem with, not the focusing, but I'm running out of segues here. Another little gripe I wanted to mention was the camera is fully weather sealed, but I know from the EM1, and we're standing over water now, and there's my segue for this section. For it to be weather sealed, it's got the AP2 port, which is a little port that you can plug in viewfinders, the kit flash that comes with it plugs into it. I've got the macro lights, I've got the SEMA 1 mic, but you've got to have this tiny little rubber cover over the accessory, the AP2 accessory port 2 port for it to be weather sealed. The problem with it and the accessories is you've got to take off these two little covers. I lost the hot shoe cover on the EM1 pretty quickly. I don't want to lose the one on this one because it's shaped funny, and I think it's shaped funny to keep the accessory 2 port in place. Now, the camera being fully weather sealed, but relying on the little cover to keep it weather sealed, but it's easy to lose. You take it off to use it. It's a bit of a flaw in design. It would be nice even if it had an optional anchor point that you could tether it to somewhere else on the camera. The battery grip cover, that's got a spot to store it with the battery grip, so that's not so much of an issue. But it's yet again a little gripe. It's not killing the camera for me, but it would have been nice if it wasn't so easy to lose essentially a critical part. I take these cameras right out into the bush on multi-day treks. I don't want to be worrying about a little bit of plastic killing my camera. One good thing about power and flaps and all that on the camera is the battery holder. So very happy that that's been improved, and short of that, the build quality is great, the buttons are great, so many focus points on it as well. I used the rule of thirds grids on the camera a lot, and with the EM5, sorry, there's just couldn't quite get in the right spot sometimes. This one's got a ton of focus points, really easy to choose your spot, and the improved buttons are great there because there's so many points, you mash the button so much. And another bonus of Micro Four Thirds over traditional mirrored DSLRs is you can set your focus points right out to the corner of a frame, and it just yet again gives you more creative choice when taking photos. One great addition to this camera over the majority of other mirrorless cameras and its predecessor is it's got what they call phase detect sensors on the sensor, and it actually does a workable autofocus continuous, which is one of the main things that stopped me from selling my Nikon gear. I've got a Nikon D700 sitting at home. It lets it track the subject a lot better, and I haven't used it too much, but it seems to work. So say if I point at my cameraman here and I'm moving, he's moving, click, in focus. It's even got it can lock onto the subject and track with them. So that's a nice advantage to have back on a mirrorless camera. For a few others have it, but it's pretty good on this camera. I'm happy with it so far. I tried to shoot some mountain biking, and I only had this new 12 to 40 lens. I think it would be a lot easier with a kit lens, a telezoom lens, but on a whole, it works pretty well. one other new feature in this camera, over I think, don't quote me on this, I think it's the first Olympus camera to have it, because I'm pretty sure the EP5 doesn't have it, is it's got a built-in HDR mode, or in fact 2 built-in HDR modes. Now, just sitting here, there's a pathway with shaded trees and bright zones, and I know everyone uses HDR nowadays for dramatic derelict rooms and buildings and such, but HDR is originally meant to be a way to get the bright areas and dark areas, so we're just going to use this as a little HDR test. So I've got it in HDR mode 1 now, and it automatically puts it in sequential high shooting for you, so 10 frames per second. You can probably handhold most shots at that. So that's HDR 1, we'll see how it comes out. HDR 2. I can't remember off the top of my head which one is which. One is meant to be for the more realistic look, one's meant to be for the more dramatic look, but I'll pop them in the video and we'll see how they turned out. And for the argument's sake, and it's on a quick button, so it's really quick to change on and off. I'll put on HDR off, and we've got what it looks like without that HDR mode. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the review. A few other things of note over the EM5. The build quality, I brought this for the build quality to go bushwalking, weather sealing, etc. It is so much better in this. This one's actually freeze proof. It actually, yes, it's heavier because it's bigger, but it feels a lot better, a lot more sturdy, and as I said, it's freeze proof where this one wasn't. The other great thing that I personally love is the 8,000th of the second shutter over 4,000ths of this. Micro Four Thirds is a system built on fast lenses. That I've got the 45 1.8, 20mm 1.7, and then you lock down on most of the cameras to 4,000ths of the second shutter and ISO 200. So that was a bit of a gripe, and use ND filters, but still it's not quite as good as just having it in camera. So this one's now got a low ISO mode, which is equivalent to 100, but my understanding is it's not as good dynamic range when shooting in it. So, but at least got the 8,000th of the second shutter as well. So it's a really great camera. I've only just got this. I got the camera about a week and a half ago. As I said, I've shot an event, I've taken it mountain biking, I've shot today, and I've taken a few photos here and there, shot some family members. Skin tones are great out of it, so it's a great lens for portraiture work, or great camera for portraiture work. I've only got the lens. I got that about 4 days ago, and this is the most I've done shooting with it today. So the camera was I've had time, understand it, thoroughly enjoy it. Few gripes I've mentioned, pretty much all of them off the top of my head at least. The lens, I can't fault it. It's got a locking hood that you've got to actually clip in. Build quality is fantastic, but this isn't a review about that. But anybody on the fence of whether to buy it with or without the lens, if you can afford it, get the lens. It's great. All in all though, that's the review. Stay tuned for more. This is the first review that we've done. Plan on doing a few more. Any questions about the Micro Four Thirds system or photography in general, just drop it in the comment section below or shoot me an email. I'll do my best to answer it if I know it. We plan on doing a review of the Billingham series of bags. I myself use a Billingham Hadley Small, and Andrew, my cameraman for the day, has got a Billingham Hadley Pro. So I really wanted to see a size review when I was buying this one and didn't have it, so we can actually show some other people that size comparison. But for now, that's me, Jeffrey, signing off. Catch you all later. Bye.